Hi everyone! So we're going to do this watermelon V-split or V-split watermelon. I'm going to use rubber bands to make the points on my cup where I want to lay my tape. So I'm going to lay it in like an X pattern, and one of the rubber bands, I'm going to use it to make two marks at the top of my cup. They're going to be opposite of each other. And with the other rubber band, I'm going to use it to make two marks at the bottom of the cup that are going to be opposite each other. So I have a mark in four parts of the cup, two of them at the top and two of them at the bottom. Now when I do mine, you'll see that I do top and bottom all the way around. You don't have to do that. I always forget that I don't have to do that. So once you got those, then you can take the rubber bands off, and then it's time to tape. So I'm going to start at one top mark, and I'm going to bring it down diagonally to the bottom mark. And then I'm going to crisscross a piece of tape over that one at the top, and then go down across to the other bottom mark. And I leave a gap at the top so it kind of looks like a TP when I crisscross my tape. So that'll give me a gap. When I take my tape off, you'll see that there'll be a little bit of a gap there. I don't want to take it all the way up to the top of the cup. So just keep crisscrossing your tape until you get it all done. And you might have to fuss with the tape a little bit because of the curve of the cup. It's not going to lay perfectly each time, so you might have to mess with it a little bit. So now I call them tails. I'm going to cut off the tails of the pieces of tape that I don't need, and that gives me a perfect point. So there's my gap. I didn't have as big of a gap on the bottom as I wanted, but it is what it is, and in the end the cup was just fine. I love doing watermelon tumblers, and normally I do them in the Milky Way style, but I wanted to try it this way, and I really like the way it came out. So now that you have it all taped off, now it's time to spray paint our base colors. So these are Krylon fluorescent paints. I really like using them, but they can be difficult sometimes. So I'm going to spray paint my pink part first. So I'm just going to tape off the rest of the cup so I don't get any spray over. And the glitters that I'm using are opal chunky mixes, so they're going to play off of whatever color you put them over. So with the brighter fluorescent pink, the color of the cup was brighter. If you use a darker pink, then the color of the cup is going to be a little bit darker. So once the pink is dry, now I'm going to tape it off so I can spray paint the rest green. So I know that this cup is a little bit late. My son was in a car accident, and he's been in the hospital for the past 2 months. And I had already started this tutorial before the accident, but with everything going on, I haven't been able to work on it the way I would have liked. So, so it's a little late. I know everyone wants to work on fall and Thanksgiving or Christmas and Halloween, but it never hurts to have a watermelon tutorial in your library. So you'll notice that that's not the color I wanted. The fluorescent green decided it wasn't going to spray, so I had to use a darker one. So because it's a darker spray paint that I'm using, and I'm using two different color greens, one lighter, one darker, if I were to put my lighter green on this darker base, you might not be able to tell the difference between the two greens. So I took some acrylic paint, like a medium color, I think it was crisp apple, and a lighter one, lime sherbet, and I kind of mixed them together. I didn't blend them completely together. It almost looked marbleized. So I wanted it to look like a real watermelon would, where you have the light and the dark stripes. So I made my pattern down at the bottom of the cup, and then I used that pattern as a guide to make my stripes on the cup. So now I'm going to let this dry completely. And now I'm using CCDIY Fast Set Epoxy to apply my glitter. So this is my new One in a Melon collection. And that's one of the reasons why I chose the V-split, because I wanted to be able for the colors to be seen on a Milky Way. They get covered a little bit, so with this style the glitters are there and you can see them. So I started with my lighter color. It's called Secret Garden, and I'm not trying to be perfect about staying in the lines or any of that. I'm just sprinkling it on there. So the next one is darker green. It's called Ireland. So again, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just putting it on there. If they mix, they mix. It's not a big deal. But I didn't like how, I wanted the stripes, but I didn't like how stand-outish the stripes were. So to kind of make it look just a little bit more blended, I took my Secret Garden, the lighter green, and I lightly sprinkled over all of it, the dark, the light, and that helped to blend it in just a little better, so it didn't look so, I don't know how to say it. So the lines didn't look so perfect. It looked more blended. So now I'm just patting it down. They are chunky opal mixes, so you want to try and help them lay as flat as you can get them before the epoxy sets up. And now I'm going to lay my pink glitter. Remember, this is fast set epoxy, so you have to work kind of quick. I usually have about 15 minutes work time with this, so the pink in the collection is called Watermelon Sugar, and I absolutely love it, and I love the way it looked over this bright pink. Just remember to be careful not to, when you're sprinkling it on there, to keep it off of the green, because it'll be stuck there. And when you're brushing the epoxy on like that, be careful not to brush any of the green onto the pink, or it'll be stuck there and you will see it. And the color of this cup is not really coming through on the video. I mean, I wish the colors would show up better. So I do one light sprinkle around because the colors blended so well in, the pink blended so well into the pink background that I couldn't tell if I had full coverage or not. So I did another light sprinkle around that. And now that that's all done, I need to pull my tape before the epoxy sets. Just be careful, pull it up slowly, because since it is chunky, you could pull some of it up when you pull up your tape. So just be careful and take your time. So there, it's not perfect. Some of the green got onto the white, and so once that has all set up, and this is one of those parts that I wasn't able to show, I took a white paint pen. You could use white acrylic paint just to touch up those spots where my green spray paint bled onto the white. So it's not perfect, but there are ways to fix it. So right now I'm sealing my pink and my green areas with the CCDIY Quick Coat. I love using the Quick Coat, especially for chunky glitter, because it just gets in there and it fills in all those cracks and crevices, and then you don't have to use as much epoxy. You will notice a difference between using it and not using it. You will notice a difference. So now I'm going to let this, but if you don't have it, that's not an issue. Just continue as you've been doing, spraying with your sealer. It's not a big deal. So once that has completely dried, now I'm going to apply my white glitter, and I've seen where people have said that they've tried using the Quick Coat to apply glitter, and so I figured I would give it a try. This area is so narrow that I didn't want to use epoxy and have it get to somewhere I didn't want it to go. So I used my brush to brush it on, and now I'm applying my glitter. I probably wouldn't do it this way again. Maybe if it was like an extra fine glitter, it might have been okay, but this is like a smaller, chunky kind of fine mix. And I did miss a few spots, so I had to go back over. Mod Podge probably would have worked a little bit better. And my Quick Coat wasn't, I didn't stay perfectly within the lines with my Quick Coat when I was brushing it on. So some of the white glitter got stuck to my green glitter, and I didn't notice it right away, so I didn't wipe it off right away. So that's one of those things that you gotta kind of work around. So now I'm going to let that dry, and I don't show it, but once it's dry, I go back and I seal the white part only. Remember, I've already sealed the pink and the green, and then I went and I sealed the white, and now I'm going back and I'm sealing the entire cup. So altogether there's 2 coats of quick coat over the cup. So once that's dry, then I put 25 ml of epoxy over the cup. And now I'm going to sand it. It's not, there's a couple of sharp pieces of glitter sticking up like around the bottom there. And I'm using a 120 grit sanding block. So I'm just going, it's bumpy, but it's not smooth like I need it to be for my decals. So I'm just going around, sanding around the rim, the bottom, just kind of knock some of those lumps down. The Dremel is something that I use every once in a while. It's not something I use all the time. I prefer to use the sanding block. Now I'm going to wipe it down with alcohol, and then I initial all of my cups. So I'm using a white paint marker to initial my cup. And I ended up having to go back over it with a black one because once I got the epoxy over that, it looked horrible. The cup was bumpy and it didn't look right. So once I sanded it, I went and I mixed up 15 ml of epoxy, but I only ended up using about 10. I wiped off most of the excess. And that was just to smooth it out after being sanded. And now I'm applying my decal. I got this on Etsy, and I really like it, but it is a pain in the butt to weed. So I got the biggest part of the weeding done, but these smaller pieces, it was easier for me to apply the decal to the cup and then weed off those tiny pieces. And this is just a little trick that we do. It's so helpful when you have little itty bitty pieces. And sometimes those little itty bitty pieces, your cutting machine, your Silhouette, your Cricut, whatever it is you're using, sometimes it doesn't always cut them right. So it helps to have it stuck down already so that you're not tugging and pulling and ripping your vinyl. The watermelon seeds, I believe that I got them on Etsy, but I can't be sure. I will go and check, and if I have a link for them, I will leave the link. Before you cut your seeds out, I would suggest printing them on a piece of paper just so you can get an idea of the size that they are. You can make them whatever size you want, but so you're not wasting any vinyl, print them out on paper first, and then you can make any adjustments that you need. I'm not laying them in any certain pattern. The only thing I'm trying to do is keep them in the same direction as I'm pulling them up off my backing paper, but I'm not laying them in any, I'm just putting them on their own willy-nilly. So now I have those on. See where you can see the white got onto the green. So now I have to figure out how I'm going to cover that. So what I ended up doing was I ended up cutting out some strips of black vinyl with my Cricut. I made them a little bit thicker so that they would cover those areas. And I'm having to use my X-Acto knife because the Cricut in some parts didn't cut all the way through. So, but I lay it just like I lay my tape. I crisscross over the top so it looks like a teepee, and then I cut off my tails. So you don't have to make them this thick. I needed to cover my boo-boo, so. But I actually like the way it ended up looking. I wasn't too sure about it, but I went with it, and I'm okay with it. The only thing I don't like is the tips down at the bottom ended up going over the edge. So I wasn't too happy about that part, but it doesn't ruin the look of the cup. It's just, I'm not happy with that part. I wanted to have that little bit of a gap, but it didn't happen. I didn't leave enough of a gap, so no big deal though. So once you get that on, just trim off your little tails. And the pink and the white part, where those two met, it was just fine. I didn't have any crossover. So for that part, I used a black holographic nail tape. And if you've seen my previous tutorials, you've seen me use this tape before. I love using this tape. And I just got it on Amazon. You get 120 rolls of different colors. So that's what I used for there. And then I'm going to seal it. Normally I like to use the quick coat, but the nail tape is so touchy. I've used it enough times to know that if I brush over it, it's going to pull some of it up. So this time I used Krylon Triple Thick to seal the vinyl. I did 2 coats, and then once it was all dry, I went and applied 20 mLs of epoxy. It was either 20 or 25, enough to cover my vinyl, and then that was it. So I know that this cup is late, and I know that there were parts missing, but I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you will give it a thumbs up, and please like my page, and if you would like to be notified of future tutorials, just click on that little bell. And also please visit my website, bumblebirdglitters.com. I sell glitters and molds. I have some ready to ship tumblers that I'm adding to all the time, and I also have alcohol inks. So go over there and check it out. And if you would like to join my group, Creating with Lindy Ray, on Facebook, I would love that. But I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.